Hello everyone, Prairie here. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to the demo for today. In today's demo, we're going to be looking at Snowpark for Python. More specifically, we're going to be going through a detailed walkthrough of setting up your Visual Studio Code environment to take advantage of developing with Snowpark for Python. In previous videos, I've done a walkthrough on setting up your PyCharm environment, which is very popular with Python developers for developing with Snowpark for Python. But the Visual Studio Code community is pretty big, and Visual Studio Code is a very capable IDE, and lots of the viewers of these channels, you use Visual Studio Code. So today we're going to walk through how you get that environment set up so you can begin developing with Snowpark for Python. There are a couple of things that we're going to need for this exercise to be completed. Number one, whether you're working with Mac or you're working on Windows, we're going to need Visual Studio Code. Once we have that, is we're going to install a couple of extensions. So I already have the extensions installed, but I'm going to walk through the extensions that are needed. So what you want to do is go over to extensions, and we're going to search for a couple of Python extensions. So basic Python, the very common one, this is from Microsoft. You want to click on this and make sure that extension is installed. So I have that installed already, and I don't need to do that anymore. Now, the second extension we need, and to be honest, this is optional, but I highly recommend it if you're kind of new to Python and you're not very used to managing environments, either with pip or virtualenv or pipenv or conda. I would recommend you get this extension. It just makes life a lot easy. And the name of that extension is Python Environment Manager. So search for Python Environment Manager. It's going to bring up this extension. You want to make sure this extension is installed within your environment. Now, once these two extensions are installed in your environment, the next thing we're going to do is on the left side here on this pane, you're going to see Python showing up here as part of your navigation. And the reason why Python shows up as such is because we now have a way to manage Python environments. Again, if you're new to these concepts, I have videos on the channels that explain Python environments and the whole idea of environment management and package management and all of that. So check out those videos. We're going to go ahead and create a new virtual environments. These are things that you can do by just using the command line and creating directly with conda. But if this extension is going to make my life easy, I'm going to go ahead and use it. So here, let's just go ahead and create a new virtual environment. Let's just call it Demohub. Is the name of the virtual environment. And the thing that we need, and this is very important if you're setting up, depending on when you're watching this video, so check on this. But if you are watching this video very recently, people might be watching this video far into the future. But if you're watching this video recently, you want to make sure that you have Python 3.8. You're not going to use 3.9, you're not going to use 3.10, or you're not going to use 3.5 or 3.6. You're going to want to make sure you have 3.8.x. Whatever comes after 3.8, you're going to want to use 3.8. This is really important because if you don't have this, you might run into issues. Again, depending on when you're watching the video. So now I have Python 3.8, and essentially we're just telling conda to instantiate a new virtual environment, would have Python 3.8 installed and a few base packages. And this is coming with conda. Now, if you don't use conda, if you're not a conda user, you can definitely use pip. You can do something very similar with pip and create your own virtual environments. But conda just makes it easy for us. So it's going to take a few minutes or so, and that environment should be created. The script ran successfully, and a virtual environment should have been created. And so here you see Demohub with Python 3.8.13. Again, 3.8 is really what we need. Anything after that is okay. So now we have Python 3.8 available within this environment. And the beauty about conda is now we have a Python environment, and we have some base packages that are within this environment. If I go ahead and open this up, these are things you can all do within the command line, but these are just the base packages that has come within this environment. Just to give you an idea on why having an easy way to manage environments is so key, is I have a different one here where the packages, I installed a couple of different packages already, and these are two different environments. So here, I think I already have Snowpark for Python and lib and a couple of other things. So we're going to try to work to set up this brand new environment to look like this. All right. So my environment is called Demohub, and this is the environment we're going to be setting. Let's go back to Explorer. And we're going to create a new file. A Python file is what we need. So just go ahead, create a new .py file, or you can just create a new file from within the browser. Once you have a py file opened already, and here I'm calling this snowpark demo.py, this is where we're going to be writing code that's going to interface with Snowpark environment to allow us to do development. So there are a couple of things that we need. We just created a new Python virtual environment. So it's going to make sense for us to take advantage of that virtual environment to install Snowpark for Python in that environment. You want to go to your terminal and switch or activate that environment. Right now, my current activated environment is Demohub 3. Well, we don't want Demohub 3. We want Demohub. So there are a couple of things that you can do. If you come below to the bottom left here on the screen, this shows us the virtual environment we're using. So you can either change the language you're working with as such, or you can come in and you can also change the virtual environment. And so here, by clicking on this, it shows us the different virtual environments we've created. And now I can go ahead and look for Demohub, and I could select this environment, and that environment would be activated for me. Another option is, instead of switching, I could just go copy conda and say conda activate Demohub, and it's going to activate Demohub for me. All right. Now we have an environment, a virtual environment here called Demohub, and it does have Python 3.8 ready for us to use. We're going to have to import a couple of packages here to write our code. So we're going to need a session to talk to Snowpark for Python. We're going to need pandas. We're going to need NumPy, scikit-learn, whatever you need, whatever dependencies you need should be installed within this environment. We can go in and we can use conda install. So that's really what we need. So we can say conda install, and we're just going to go Snowpark for Python. And I'm not going to go into the details of this, but once you do conda install, this is going to the default conda channel. In your conda installation, you're going to have a config file where you can change your default channel. So this is going to look at conda, and it's going to look at your default channel. Now, once this is done, I'm going to show how you can install Snowpark for Python. Again, let's go back up here. So we're doing snowpark for Python. That's what we need installed within our environment. So conda is going to install that for us. It takes a few minutes, and that installation should be complete. All right, so the installation completed successfully, and we should have Snowpark for Python within the environment. And to verify this, we can always go back into our extension and verify in Python. If we open up the environment here, we can see the packages in this environment. We should have Snowpark for Python installed. Now, there are more packages here than we had before. We have the connector, we have Snappy, and all the dependencies that were needed for Snowpark for Python to work. So the example I showed before was by just going through the default channel. So let's go ahead and clear this. And I'm going to leave all these commands in the description. If you didn't want to go through the default channel and you wanted to go through Snowflake's official specific channel on Anaconda, you can do that as well. So you can do a conda install and then specify the channel. And you're going to have to go to this specific channel here. Of course, I'm going to leave the link in the description. So this would do exactly the same thing. Just by doing that, you can see now our resolution is not a problem because we now have Snowpark for Python installed. But we're going to need something else here that is still having a problem. So we're going to need pandas. Of course, these are just basic installation steps for anyone who is very familiar with conda. For this, we're just going to need something like conda install, point it to Snowflake, and then get NumPy, and then maybe get pandas as well. So let's go ahead and actually run that. Again, we're installing pandas within the Demohub virtual environment. I think I can skip NumPy. I'm not really going to focus on specific packages, but whatever you need, scikit-learn, NumPy, TensorFlow, XGBoost, any of those packages, you can go ahead and get them installed. Now, once we have all the packages set up, we're going to begin writing our code. And we're going to keep this really basic. I mean, 101 basic for the code we're going to write today, because the priority for today is getting the environment set up more so than the complexity of the code we can write. In future demos, we're going to go into more specific targeted writing of really complex data engineering, data science, machine learning functions. But today, let's just keep it at the level of getting that environment set up. So we now have Snowpark, we have NumPy, we have Pandas. You can bring in any other packages you need for the work you're trying to do. In order to begin taking advantage of this, there are a couple of things that we need to get set up. The very first one is the config parser to read my configuration file. Let's actually go back to the object browser to read my configuration file coming from config.ini. That has my login, my username, my password, and the account I'm connecting to. We're going to be connecting to this Snowflake account to do the work. So everything we're doing here is going to get pushed down into that Snowflake account. So let's go in and throw in the config parser. This is pretty standard where we're using the config. We're going into that config file. We're going to read my username, my password, database schema, warehouses, and all the good stuff that we need. Now, with all of that set up, we're going to create a session builder. Let me zoom in here for one more time so we can really see this on the screen. And I'm going to put this to the side. Let's zoom in again one more time. I want the scripts to be very visible. All right. So again, we've used conda to essentially install Snowpark for Python, either going through the default channel or going through the Snowflake official channel. You can choose which one makes the most sense for you. Now we're going to read our config so I know what Snowflake environment I'm going to be talking to. And we're creating a session using session builder. Once we have our session, this is where we can start doing work. Just to give an idea of a simple function, we can go in and do something like session and throw in a SQL in here, right? So for this, I'm going to create a stage in Snowflake. And the reason why we're creating this stage is because we're going to take advantage of that when creating our UDFs. And I'll really explain that as we get into it. So let's run this. Now, this is not running locally. It's taking advantage of our virtual environment here, Snowpark for Python in Visual Studio Code, and it's going to push all of this into my Snowflake environment. So that stage was created. If I switch over and we look at activity, you can see that the queries we ran are all coming over here. So this stage has been created. If I go into this database that has that stage and I take a look at this, you can see that we've just created a stage. Nothing fancy, nothing to write home about. I think this is just Snowflake 101. But we're doing this using the Snowpark package. We're coming through Snowpark. All right, so let's go back now. We have a stage. Just to keep things at the level of basic, let's implement a function. And I really have to stress this out that in making this video, I typically like to start small and then get complex. So some folks might say this example is a little bit elementary, but there's a reason why. So we're going to create a function. You can make this function really complicated. We're talking about XGBoost, scikit-learn, whatever it is your machine learning model is doing. You can throw this into this function. But let's just start working with a very simple function here that takes a value and essentially doubles the value, multiply that by 2. All right. This is a Python function. I'm sure if you're watching this video, you know how to write code in Python. So there's nothing new here. So now we have a function, but this function is a local function. There's nothing unique about this function. It's just an ordinary Python function. What would make this function ordinary is us being able to take advantage of this function in Snowflake, in Snowflake's compute. Okay, that's where Snowpark really shines. So now, to take advantage of that, there are 2 ways we can do that. Number 1, and this is my favorite way of doing it, and I'm going to show you another way using decorators. So what we can do here is to register this function as a UDF. This is a regular function. Here I'm saying, hey, use a session UDF register, and you can do a UDF or you can do a start proc. There are different options. I recommend you read the documentation. So register that as a UDF, give it a name, demohub.d. We're going to replace that function. We're going to make it a permanent function, and we're going to reference the stage because we just created the stage above. This is how easy it is to register a function in Snowpark. Okay. There is an alternate way of doing this. I typically don't use it as much, but that way would be using a decorator. So if you wanted to use a decorator, you can come into this function and you can put in a decorator here, give it a name like demo hub dev, D for dev, and then put in all your packages and dependencies that this function is going to need, and then replace that, make it true, make it permanent, reference your stage. This will do exactly the same thing. All right. You can either use a decorator or you can use the session register. Like I said, I prefer the session register. So once we have this, if I go ahead and execute this code now, again, all of this is not going to run locally. It's going to create a UDF for us. And I think my code should be running. And it's created a stage. And at some point, it should register this UDF as a function. And we're going to switch over to the Snowflake side. And we should see a function created for us. And that function has been registered as Demohub T. So let's switch over to the Snowflake side and do a refresh of this. And what we want to do, open up functions. Now we have a Demohub T function here that takes a number. It's just been created, so it's very new. We're just creating this. And you can see the implementation of this function here. What Snowpark did is picked up all the dependencies. If there were packages we needed for that function to run, it's picked that all up, it's packaged it, and created this UDF for us. I think most people know how to call functions inside of Snowflake. And so this is just as easy as calling any other function inside of Snowflake that you want. Okay, so let's just go down here. If I wanted to see this code in a worksheet, you can open that up and you can see that in a worksheet. You can call the function again like any other function. This is really the beauty of Snowpark, taking what the data science team could be doing, taking some of your common code that the data engineering team could be doing, usually written in Python, sitting in workbooks, in notebooks, in very obscure environments, packaging those ops as very strong capabilities in functions, in UDFs, in stored procedures that the average user can call. Even if they don't know a dime about Python, they can go call this function like any other function, give it a variable, an argument, and it's going to perform whatever that function logic is tasked with performing, like attribution, scoring model, customer lifetime value, whatever the use cases your team is working on. You can really take advantage of calling functions like this. So there are two ways that we can do it. Within my notebook, we can see how to call the function here. And then I'm also going to show how we can call that function from within the UI once that function has been persisted. Now, you don't always have to create a permanent function. You can also create ephemera temporary functions. So the next piece that I'm going to do here, just to show us how we take advantage of this function, looking at the table, we're going to call that function. We're just going to again go back to our session, and instead of my double here, I'm going to call the name of the function. And what was the name of that function? Demohub D, Demohub demo. And we're referencing this regular sample data. And so now I'm applying that function to a specific column there. So this column is a numeric column. I know that for sure. So it's going to take that and just double the result for us. And it's going to give us the top results. And you can do this for functions as well as stored procedures or user-defined table functions. So there are a lot of things that you can do. But again, for today's video, we'll kind of focus on setting up the environment and getting started. We're going to get into more advanced concepts a little bit later on. So now we have that. If I go ahead and do a print on output here, which we have coming from that session, we should see our results getting doubled. And the beauty about this is, as I run this, this is not processing locally on my machine. Okay, this is pushing all of that. If we go over to activity history here on the Snowflake side of the world, you can see all those queries we're sending. They're coming in here. Just a second ago, this query came in, and you can see now it's calling our function and it's going to give us some results. So let's go ahead and see. So it ran, it called that function, and it gave us result. Every value there has just essentially been doubled. All right. If you wanted to call this as a data frame as opposed to writing SQL in here, you certainly can do that. And I'm going to show that in a different video. If you want to use data frame style processing and still access those functions, you can do it. Or if you want and you prefer to come into the Snowflake UI and you want to open up this code in the worksheet, I'm going to go ahead and select DemoDB. We're going to do public, and the warehouse we're working with here is Demohub, demo warehouse. Think about this from the analyst perspective. So the analyst is developing. This could be your really cool machine learning model that does natural language processing or machine translation or focus on attrition of sales or campaign effectiveness, or just scoring your customer lifetime value. Tons of use cases, right? You can create those functions. Now, the average analyst can just come in here. And remember, we wrote this in Python, and I can call this limit 10. And this function is running, doubling the results, just to show you that we're actually doubling the results here times 2. Let me bring the other column and doubled. Okay. So just to give you an idea, we're actually doubling those values I'm calling the function. Again, I know this is a basic function, but whatever complexity you can throw in here, you can do that. If I say, hey, I don't want this, I'm running in an extra small, I really want to bring the full power of Snowflake to make this run even faster. Guess what? It takes me 2 seconds. I can throw this, turn this one extra large, and now I can do my inference. Okay, now I can take this one extra large and I can run this to score even bigger data sets. That's the beauty about this kind of simplicity by leveraging Snowpark for Python. So just to kind of recap here, because we're going to have some more advanced presentations around this and more specific use cases I'm going to walk through. Setting up your environment is really straightforward. Okay, the very first thing you want to do is make sure you have Python installed. So go to extension, grab those 2 extensions, and then you're going to have them here. Set up a new environment, a new virtual environment with 3.8. You need 3.8 as of recording this video. Now that might change, but as of recording this video, depending on when you're watching, I recommend go to the documentation and read what the documentation says. But as of recording this video, 3.8 is what you need. Once you have 3.8 in your virtual environment, you can use conda to install directly from the Snowflake channel, or you can use conda to install from just the default channel, whatever you have. Now, once you have that, we just import from Snowflake Snowpark session. We're going to grab sessions because we need that. Import a couple of modules here and packages. Right. So from here, we're getting these modules. Here, we're getting this entire pandas package. Now, once you have that, we simply create that session. We can create these UDFs and register those UDFs. And you can also do data frame style operations. Okay. I'll touch on this in the next demo, but just to tease on this, because I think this will be kind of fun when we get to that session. All the data frame style operations that you can do. For example, if I wanted to bring table into a data frame, and then I can start performing actions on that data frame. So I can start doing things like manipulating that data frame. I can do more advanced data frame type operations. As an example, I can take this customer data frame and I can select, I can create new columns, I can call UDFs using the way you write with data frames. And this is going to push that down into Snowflake. So these are concepts that I'm going to be touching on in future videos. But hopefully, before we get into those videos, you will have your environment set up. Whether you're working with Visual Studio Code, which I think is really cool, or you're using PyCharm or something else. I think this should hopefully help you get that environment set up, and then we can pick it up from there. I'm going to leave a link to some of these scripts I've referenced in the description. And as always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. We're going to jump on the Demohub and we're going to see what we can do about that. So again, thanks for watching. This has been Fru. Hopefully this was helpful. I'll see you in the next demo.